Welcome to the Separation Anxiety in Dogs Decoded podcast. I am your host, Ness Jones, and we'll be deep diving into all things separation anxiety. But before we get started, please make sure you like this episode, subscribe to the channel, and turn on your notifications so you never miss another one. And don't forget, if you are interested in joining my easy step-by-step training program to resolve separation anxiety in your dog, you'll find the link in the show notes. Now let's get started. Hello, and today we are going to be changing things up a little bit, and I am going to be answering a listener question. I do invite anybody that is keen to have a question answered to please email me at hello@nessjones.com and I will get to them. I've got some banked up already, but I will definitely get to them as soon as I am able. But today I am answering Nancy's question, and she sent through one that's quite touching, really. So she's got two dogs and she's concerned that what happens if one of them passes away. So we have an 8-year-old Brittany and a 6-year-old standard poodle. Unfortunately, the Brittany is having health issues. What she does mention, though, before we get to that, is the poodle frets when Brittany leaves for an appointment. Brittany does a little bit when the poodle leaves, but conversely, the Brittany also doesn't like it when the poodle leaves, but is more able to deal with it. Unfortunately, the Brittany is having some health issues and she's worried about the impact that is going to have on her poodle. She says, "We won't be getting another dog. Do you have some ideas how to tackle a scenario like this?" Great question. So firstly, before we get to the last question, I just want to touch on the poodle fretting when Brittany leaves, but the Brittany managing. I keep calling Brittany as in Britney Spears, that Brittany. Conversely, the Brittany doesn't like the poodle, but is able to deal with it. So the poodle fretting when the Brittany leaves, is that based in FOMO? It's always a question to ask. I know my dogs definitely have FOMO. If I take one of them out, the other two don't like that. But it is not based in anxiety so much as fear of missing out. But anyway, that's an issue. That is sort of a bit separate to what you're saying if the Brittany does pass. And hopefully she will be with you a lot longer. But if this does happen, yes, it is possible that the poodle will fret and can sometimes create separation anxiety. So often, and you've mentioned this already, but often what can happen is if you've got two dogs and one of them passes and the second dog that's still with you gets separation anxiety or develops separation anxiety despite never having it, then we may be looking at getting another dog. You've already mentioned that you're not going to get one. So we don't really know what your poodle is going to do if your Brittany does pass. She might be fine, but we don't know. It would be the ideal outcome that she just accepts it, she moves on. There's that argument about whether you take the poodle with you or have the poodle there when the other dog passes, so that they can accept that that dog has passed. It's a terrible topic to talk about, but I know there's a school of thought that believe that it's not a bad idea to allow that to happen. I did it with a cat once. She did die in the kitchen, and the other cat and the two dogs both acknowledged. All three of them acknowledged that she was gone. She was very old. She was a very senior cat, so it wasn't traumatic. She literally fell asleep and passed. Oh, it breaks my heart talking about this stuff. But they all got to see it and acknowledge that she wasn't there anymore. But I've had other dogs that have passed and cats, and it's happened at the vets and they just haven't come home with us. And fortunately, they've coped well, even though they might have that element of FOMO. The problem is we just don't know what's going to happen with your poodle, if she's going to cope or not. So what we do need to acknowledge is that dogs do go through a grieving process. So certainly give your poodle time to process it, I think is a good word. But, take that time for yourself as well, because if you're grieving, your emotional state's going to impact your dog as well. But also go and get out into nature, go and do some stuff that is nice for your dog, that they enjoy doing. And, make sure you connect with them and make them, ease the trauma for them. If your poodle does develop separation related behaviors, you've already said that she frets when the Brittany leaves, then I would consider just doing some training and just start with some basic stuff. So don't leave her alone initially. Let her accept the fact that there is no, she's the only dog. And then really just go back to basics. Start with, if she was a puppy, what would we do? We would do some basic door desensitization, make sure she's comfortable with that. Tiny, tiny short absences, very, very small. What you don't mention is what the poodle does when you say she frets when the Brittany is leaving. But try to ease her into it gradually. So gradual exposure to those safe absences. Go back to some of the early episodes, but I would be very mindful of not expecting, to be able to go out for 4 hours initially. Just ease it. If you moved home, if you've got a young dog, a puppy, a new rescue, this is how you would approach it. You would start with some basic door desensitization, get them used to that exit point, and then short absences, and then gradually increasing. Feel free to reach out to me if you want to, if you get to the point where you feel you need some help, and we can just set up a program for you that will be probably, I would imagine, you would probably move through a program a lot quicker than somebody starting from scratch, I would like to think. It's interesting. So most dogs with separation anxiety, it's the humans they want. So sometimes it works to have the company of another dog, but often they don't care that there's another dog there. It's human. Is it possible that you're human? Is it possible that your poodle frets when you take the Brittany out because she thinks that she's missing out on something, and so that might be why she's fretting, as opposed to she's not able to be by herself? It's information that I don't have here in this question, but it would be quite interesting to know if there is a difference. You might find that she's perfectly fine to be by herself without the Brittany, once she's got used to the idea that she's a single dog now. But again, we don't have that information. And I think for me, if it was me, I wouldn't assume that she's going to be all right. I would not leave her alone initially, for a couple of days, just make sure she's okay. Obviously do all the things to help her through any grieving process. But, get out in nature, some nice long, slow walks, have a bit of fun, reconnect, and then start with some basic door desensitization, and then some gradual absences that are very small, and just test the waters, get some eyes on her, get some sort of visual on her while you go out, and just see how she is. And then if she really isn't coping, then I would really start doing some proper structured training. And then that would be probably a good time to reach out to me so I can actually provide you with that training, so that you're not second guessing whether you're doing it right. But again, I do feel that if she is okay to be at home with the Brittany by herself, then it's possible that she would, if you do have to reach out to me, if you do need that program, then I'm sure that you'll probably get through it a lot quicker than what somebody else might, if their dog is really, really anxious to be with the human, if that makes sense. But yes, I hope your Brittany's okay. And yeah, it's unfortunately one of those things in life, isn't it? We lose our best friends. They're not with us long enough, that's for sure. You have been listening to Ness Jones on the Separation Anxiety in Dogs Decoded podcast. Don't forget to check out the show notes to learn more about my programs and how I can help you with tailored training. Until next time.